Dan Roster, BRE. I'll wait for someone else to go first, but don't put their hand up. This is a clarification and then a question. So just to start with, Terry, when you mentioned the courses, it's worth noting that the BRE courses, we did them in alignment to the Learning Outcome Framework. We did documents back to the task group, which Richard Lane has come back and told us that we are aligned up to it. We've very much got into that focus. Now I've done that, the question is, on the education side of it, there's a lot of stuff going on role-based education, where people focus on the roles, and particularly on the international side, what we consider to be, a BIM manager, a BIM coordinator, a project information manager, a task team, whatever, is different here than it is in Europe, in America, and somewhere else. Should the education instead focus on activities and outcomes as opposed to the roles, at which point then you can create a role profile based on a modular activity-based framework? So if you said, this guy's responsible for doing X, Y, and Z, and he'd be competent in doing those activities. So I'd be interested in your thoughts on that, and Dale's as well.
It's a damn good question.
Thank you.
Answering that, I think people will still go down the old, I'm a PM and I'm always going to be a PM and that's what I like, or I'm going to be a BIM manager, or I'm going to be a coordinator. I don't like this, ooh, I can cover all of that scenario. I think you're always going to get that in industry. I think we're stuck in my ways, really, that, as said, I'm a PM and I'm always going to be a PM type of scenario. It's just the way industry is. It's the way we've been for years now. I think it'll take us dinosaurs, to leave the industry and let the young guys come through to make that change, really.
Yeah, just to continue from that, I think you've hit the nail on the head. The information manager, I think even in the protocol it says the information manager can be a architect, construction manager, project manager, it doesn't matter who you are, but this is the role that gets snapped on to your day-to-day role. Other people have taken that on to a full-time job, fair enough, but I think the actual tasks and what you actually need to do for that role should be the outcome, and then any person within the project can do that rather than given a new role, which has caused all the confusion over the last 5-6 years anyway. So I think, yeah, the output is actually the wish and the need rather than the actual role.
One of the issues I have with sort of the BIM thing is, I've been doing what's probably termed as BIM, we're probably getting on well over 20 years, but I'd never called myself a BIM manager. I was always an architect. Okay, I may have carried out full BIM management role plus, but I would never take on that title. I don't see many email managers out there. There's no email information managers yet. Everybody just uses email. It's something we do, okay, or social media. BIM is just part of what we all need to do and just get on with our jobs, and it's just the process in terms of encapsulating it. I thought actually what BIM Campus's presentation was ideal, because the problem we've had is collaboration, and actually I think that should be in every single university, and that's what everybody should be taught, to actually get out within industry with some skills in terms of how to coordinate and just do BIM in terms of what they normally do.
We can also see from the education side, there are also movements in certain countries. They have started in universities, taking people who have experience in the industry, who have been working in a certain way for a longer time, and basically taking them in the education, setting up how can we improve the thing we are doing together, irrespectively of the role, forgetting actually the BIM management side of that one. How do I, in my own work, when I do it, utilize this and do it better?
Bill Wright, Electrical Contractors Association. I'm particularly interested in Paul's presentation on the lack of standardisation. How are we actually going to attack that? Because you need a set of standards for everybody to work to and understand. And you highlighted some particularly good illustrations there. But also, I'm worried about the training and everything. You mentioned that university graduates aren't trained in BIM. Well, that's forever so. A university degree gives you the basics, and it's a passport to an interview. What I think industry is failing to do, and I was a rookie recipient at the time many years ago, was graduate training you join the company and they train you up. And that seems to be sadly missed. And I'm very pleased to see that the BIM campus is actually picking that up. And I'm pleased on that, but I'm also worried that industry is not actually doing it itself. And then going back to Paul's, I fully agree with you that you can't just be a BIM manager. You have to have a more global approach, because you need a practical, construction is a very practical industry. You need to actually be able to understand and see in your mind what is happening. And I see too many people just concentrating on what is on their screen, not what is actually happening outside. And I think we've got a major problem in the industry. It's internal skills in actually getting the technology and the BIM training so people to actually design, but they also need the practical experience to actually put that into the design. So there's a whole series of scenarios which I'm pleased to see have been addressed, but I just need to know how we actually push that forward rapidly, because the next, what comes post-BIM? You know, also can 10 years or 15 years ago, the greatest things since what's going to come after BIM?
Who would like to start?
Well, I'll start from the data side. Also, we have object standards in terms of, or some at least in IFC. The main issue is in terms of the information that gets attached to those objects. So that's the problem with, there are predefined property sets which a lot was sort of sorted out 10, 15 years ago in terms of the early definitions of things. So it's expanding the scope of those. That is sort of like the definition of stuff. Then it then needs to manufacturers, other bodies, then need to start populating that. Then it needs to work into software tools. I came from sort of working with large international architectural practices in terms of dealing with CAD management and rolling out standards and processes. If you don't make it easier to use than not to use, it won't happen. So basically, it needs to have solutions that are just built into the tools, so the graduates, whoever, industry professionals, just get on and do it, and it works for them, without them having to think about it. It just happens in the background. And that's where we're trying to sort of build these web services, so we can expand the IFC classes, we can filter information onto the objects. You know, we just provide services for other people to connect into, to start interlinking the data, to basically move to this sort of big data environment that the future should hold.
Going from the industry side, trying to train whilst they're on the job and that sort of thing, bringing the experience to graduates. There are some fantastic courses out there, and I look to the likes of Balfour Beatty's, Lang O'Rourke's, and those sort of contractors who take on graduates and they put them through a pretty intensive graduate course. And what they're doing is fantastic, but they are a very small slice of a very big industry. Even though they make all the money comparatively, they are the ones that are only training maybe 1,000 people in an industry where we have, what, 2 million people within the construction industry in the UK? If not more. I'm guessing a lot more than that. How can a handful of tier 1 contractors train everyone? Which, what they're seeing is they're training them, and then they're just running off and getting a bigger pay packet elsewhere, which, you know, holding on to those people is a big issue for them. Campus is trying to bridge the gap between the academic and the professional to get them in that sense, but
many companies have their own in-house training.
Yep.
And there's no point in running those because everybody has the same amount of training.
Yep.
It worries me that only a small slice of people doing that, and people like yourself are having to pick up the pieces.
Yep. Coming from the SME side of that, it's a lot of money to train those guys as well, and they just can't afford it. I've been fortunate to work for people that have invested in me and been happy for me to train and progress in that sense, but the vast majority of firms cannot afford to send people on the courses to learn this stuff, and that's why they can't employ them. They just need them knowing it before they walk through the door. They don't have the time. 6 weeks is a long period of time for a firm that can't afford to have people out of the office learning. It's the truth of the fact, which is why we try and do it before they even get into that role.
Should it not be that we push the learning outcomes framework into the academia side of life? Mm-hmm. So that they're doing that already. It's happening within academia, so that when they come out, they already know what this thing called BIM is. We're not having to do another, 6, 12, 6 months, whatever it is, retraining, basically.
I don't want to do BIM campus. I don't want the need for BIM Campus to be there. You know, I am there trying to provide a service for students that are not getting the skills they need. I cannot wait for the day that BIM Campus is not needed, in a sense. You know, that kind of sounds like I'm shooting myself in the foot here, but I would like every graduate coming out of university knowing what BIM is, what BIM Level 2 is, and being able to walk into a job and do that. That is my job done in that sense, trying to push the universities. And like you say, the learning framework, we follow the learning framework in our course, and we follow it as best as we can. And I would love to see the universities and the governing bodies actually say, now this is part of your course, you need to mandate that to get your accreditation. That's the challenge. Thank you.
It's an observation, really. It's quite damning discussion taking place, and I think people need to know, we as an industry need to push up to the client base and academia beyond this point on ROI. What is the return on the investment, investing in our people to make sure they have the right skills? Because if we don't, as an industry, we are going to fall behind. And having spent the last 11 years working in Southeast Asia, I can assure all of us in this room that the rest of the world is looking to us for leadership here with BIM, BRE, etc. But the rest of the world, China, Vietnam, Indonesia, other places will very soon be ahead of us and we will be left behind.
Well, at this moment in time, China's just introduced the Institute for BIM. You know, it's just come alive over the last few months there. So they're doing that already. It's happening now. You know, so we're starting to lag behind already. You know, we're meant to be a leader here, but actually we're starting to lag behind others, bit by bit.
But it again comes back to the point that I was asking yesterday, and my colleague also raised: where are the clients driving this, and where are the institutions? Somebody put up, sorry, I think it was Terry, was it on your spreadsheet? You listed out all the players, all the institutes. Where was the RIBA? You know, there are holes. And if we, as consultants and contractors, are not driving these requirements up to the institutions that we're paying our fees for.
So just to,
yeah, I have to say that I feel like you know, putting a noose over a beam here and stringing myself up listening to this. You know, my goodness me.
Please don't do that.
My goodness me, how negative we are being here. Okay, so there are lots of things here. We have huge challenges. We're trying to change an entire industry to new ways of working, you know. But look how fast and how quickly we have moved from 2010. Now, I travel around the world and I talk to other groups, and I know that despite all of our doom and gloom this morning, you know, there is an understanding here about where this is going, about asset data, that there isn't elsewhere yet. You know, yes, there are huge, enormous challenges with education, but does that mean that things aren't happening? No, it doesn't. So we've got, as an example, we've got you know, a long-established master's course in BIM and integrated design at Salford, which has been going on. We've got a fantastic course aimed more at the project management side of BIM, master's course now, I think, 3 or 4 years strong at Middlesex. We've got a master's course at Liverpool University. We've got one coming up at Huddersfield. There are a bunch of really good educational things. We also have, which hasn't been mentioned, I'm amazed, the BIM Academic Forum, which has 35 of the best universities in the UK and Ireland grouping together and meeting regularly over the past years to discuss what BIM education means for academia. You know, we've got integrated BIM courses, so I point particularly to things like Dublin Institute of Technology and Salford University, which do great work at integrating. They have enormous challenges, don't get me wrong. I think the challenges for academia are even greater than they are for the industry, because they have long-established ways of providing people with a professional qualifications to the industry. So getting all of the institutes to understand that there is now a new way of having to educate people to work in a far more collaborative way is really hard. But, you know, my goodness me, we have come a long way. And, honestly, I just think that there are so many positives that one can take. And, you know, we have moved a long way. There is still an enormous amount to do. education is an issue, but we do have courses, you know, like the one run by the BRE, which is certified, which is, you know, which can begin to get, you know, so are there things that you know, companies can do to make sure that they're qualified? Well, of course there are, you know, and you know, ultimately, it does come down to each individual director of each company to make a financial business decision. Is this good for my company? And what do I, you know, the training, incidentally, isn't just about, you know, learning how to do a bit of, you know, software modelling. It's actually about, if I'm a director, it's about what does BIM mean to appointments? What does BIM mean to my PII? You know, all of these things. But the information is amazingly there. We have now got, you know, so again, you know, we have very definitely centres of excellence in terms of the contracting bodies, you know, but I now go around and I'm amazed at some of the work going on. So, yeah, I guess all I'm saying is, you know, having heard, you know, a lot of the discussion this morning, I'm beginning to think, oh, you know, is it really that bad? And it isn't. It really isn't. We are getting there. You know, so let's up Britain for a change and say we are in advance of most of the world about this. We've understood that this is about whole life data, about digital information, and let's just get on and do it rather than bemoaning, you know, the challenges which we do face. Sorry, rant over.
Whilst I've been really tempted to what? Oh, you look like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was almost jumping in exactly the same, but I don't need to rant quite as much now.
I always do.
So, I mean, yeah, there is a CIC BIM forum, which brings all the institutes together. I happen to represent the RIBA on that. So that's been going from the initial start of the task group. What probably, and you know, there are multiple BIM hubs and things all doing different things. I think the problem is in terms of dissemination of all the stuff that is going on. And that is probably a big problem to industry in terms of letting people, you know, within certain circles, you know all this stuff is going on. We're developing particular modules with particular colleges in terms of helping all sorts of different disciplines learn bits.
And we should just big up our profession and our institute to say that the RIBA was the first institute to get to align the work stages to the CIC work stages and bring out, you know, what that meant.
Which was part of the CIC BIM forum work that then moved on, and Dale Sinclair dealt with that side of it, and I sat on the British Standards side of it, driving air there. So there is a lot of stuff we've been doing. Internationally, I've been presenting all around the world. In Hong Kong, when I started talking about BIM in terms of asset lifecycle information, linking to social media, the rest of it, it just blew their minds. They were just thinking about design information from design to construction. That was their perception at that point in time. So, yeah, we are still seen to be leaders in the UK on this, but as been mentioned, we need to keep hold of that mantle because other people are snapping on our heels very, very quickly.
And the 15 million announced in the budget towards funding whatever level 3 will be, we don't know yet. But, you know, the Digital Built Britain project will go a long way to ensuring that this carries on. So, you know, if we can see that value has been appreciated in what has been done, and that this is not, you know, the foot is not coming off the accelerator just because we've now reached 2016.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah. I'm going to say, as I agree with both of you, there's a lot has been done and it is fantastic to see where it's going. I just still voice the concern that it's not getting down the lines quick enough. You know, a lot has come along and it is incredibly quick where we've come from 2010. I know you've been here a lot longer than I have and seen over the last 20, 30 years, but since 2010 to where we are now, 6 years is a long time to finally, as we've seen over the last 2 days, still not agree on what level 2 means. And it's even longer for that to finally get an agreement and people to say, right, now how do I start learning this stuff? Or I know what the word is, yet I still don't know how to do it. That's my concern and why we do what we do. But I agree, it's much better than where we were, and there is bright futures, and I'm hoping for that.
So I will wrap it up with a few chairman's reflections that come from being like the old git of the team who's been in the industry for 40 years. I love the positivity. I had the good fortune to spend some time with a couple of members of the GB rowing team who have won a lot of gold medals, and they have an approach called positive critical. I think this was mostly to manage James Cracknell, who moaned about everything, because he's a bit of a monster. And they said, if you come off a training session and you're not happy with it, the approach is to go, well, that was quite good, wasn't it? In fact, we went pretty well today, but I think we could go even better if. And I quite like that approach. Clearly, we don't have perfection, but it has gone very well. Last week, we had a meeting here of Enbury, which is all the organisations like BRE around Europe, and it was on BIM. And the thing that I took away from that was every other European country was looking at us for leadership because they do see us in the lead. So I think we should take hold of that. We should analyse what needs to be done to improve and move forward in a positive way. And it is going to happen. This is part of the digital revolution that's happening in every aspect of our life. And for those of you who weren't here yesterday, I'll remind you of the comment I made, that strap line from the 90s from the DTI, which was just simply innovate or liquidate.